Hello everyone, I'm, Rachel?
Hmm?
Didn't we have the same problem last year? It's Halloween.
Oh, sorry, I totally forgot.
Ooh, this is better. Oh, you dressed up too, Rachel?
Yeah, I'm Emo Joker.
Okay.
Hello everyone, I'm Sparkles and today I'm going to make a spooky ghost mermaid for Halloween. I used a weird version of a Monster High doll for her, but I still think she turned out pretty spooky, so let's get started. I'm going to be using this spectra. I got her from my friend Abby at a flea market and she's a little messed up. Her calves are gone, she doesn't have any elbow or wrist joints, and she has a speaker on the back of her neck and a button. When you press it, it sounds like this. And if you look closely, you can see there's some tiny lights in her leg cavity and her elbows, and some of those disc batteries in her legs. I assume she was supposed to sing at one point, but she sure doesn't now. She also has ball and chain earrings, I think, that don't come off, and her head is the same plastic as her body. So here's my design for this doll. I imagined her to be a lost spirit in the middle of the ocean. She was captured by pirates, and that's why she has chains and a fishing net. And I also want to give her a resin tail fin to mimic her ghostly hands. Okay, let's start like always and remove her factory paint and hair. She has really nice hair, so I kept it. Now removing the factory paint was a pain in the bum. I did a test swatch on the back of her neck with pure acetone and it melted the plastic. I obviously couldn't use it on the face, so I switched in on acetone nail polish remover. It took way longer and it just smudged her paint around. At one point I was debating whether I should just use the acetone, but I carried on. For like 30 more seconds. I ended up layering up white acrylic paint to make her a blank canvas. There we go. Let's give her some hair. I used white brushed acrylic yarn for a wispy look. I just glued them directly to her head with hot glue. And after that, I wrap up her hair and get ready for the face up. Okay, time for the face up. I'm going no Mr. Super Clear this time. Instead, I'm using Liquitex matte varnish and a makeup sponge. And I'm going in with watercolor pencils and chalk pastels. Oh my goodness, I wanted to thank you guys so much for all the love you've been showing my channel over the past few weeks. I believe I had around 400 on the 7th and I'm almost at 1,000. Be expecting a giveaway announcement soon. I'm excited. I actually had some problems with the watercolor pencils. When I went to add a layer of the matte varnish, the watercolor pencil would come up with it and I would accidentally dot it all over the face. I was actually expecting this to happen to the pastels, so that surprised me. So I switched to acrylic paint and the problem stopped. I wanted to give her sad eyes and black tears like she's crying in a black abyss. I'm not sure how to explain it. Anyway, once I'm done, I do one more layer of matte varnish, then I take Liquitex High Gloss to give it some shine to the eyes and lips. Okay, time to make her mermaid tail. I want to make her tail fin out of resin, so I drew up a tail fin shape and sculpted it out of polymer clay. I set that aside and start on the bottom half of her tail. I used the same reference I drew for the tail fin and sculpted that too. But before I bake them, I add some wire to the shin piece, I guess you would call it. Sorry, I don't know mermaid terminology. So I can make the posing mechanism later. Also, I think it's pretty obvious, but I removed the batteries left in her legs before I did any of this. Now off to the oven. While they're baking, let's fix her legs. I basically fused her legs together with hot glue and epoxy sculpt, so she looks more mermaid-like. When she dries, I sand her bottom half to make her nice and smooth and get her ready to repaint. I painted her white acrylic paint with a lot of thin layers. Okay, tail fin is out of the oven and cooled. I make sure to sand it before I make a mold of it to make sure it's nice and smooth. I'm using this amazing mold putty again and mixing equal parts of A and B and gently wrapping the putty around the thin piece, making sure there's no thin spots. And I wait for it to cure. Once it's cured, I demold it with my X-Acto knife. You know it might be a good idea if you didn't cut your board yourself there. Stop it, please! Okay. While I'm at it, I cut a small hole at the top so I can actually pour some resin in there. Before I do that, I tape up the slit I cut into the mold and support it with tin foil in a cup so it's not flopping all over the place. And I'm using this 2-part resin from Amazon. I'm pretty sure you guys have seen this before. I measure out about 9 ounces of each on my scale, which was way too much, and I mix both parts together. And I pour them into the mold and let it cure overnight. In retrospect, I wish I had newer resin because this stuff is clearly yellowing. Ah well, can't do much about it now. While the resin cures, let's figure out how to pose her. I'm trying a method similar to the light bulb's method she used on spectra for her elbow joints. First, I took a skewer and marked how long I needed them to be, for where the top and the shin part meet, and where the shin and the tail fin part meet. I drill 2 holes in the top half with my dremel. I take some wire and epoxy glue and glue them into place. I do the same with the shin piece, since the wires aren't secure. Okay, it's the next day and my tail fin is cured. Time to make another. Perfect! Anyway, once everything is nice and smooth, I take some UV resin and attach the thin pieces to make them become one. I'm using some tape to make sure the resin goes where I want it. I cure it under my UV light and then leave it in the sun to fully cure. I could use some sanding and polishing, so let's do it. I'm using my Dremel and oh my goodness, it is so much faster than hand sanding. I really recommend getting a Dremel if you do some serious sanding on a small surface. Nice. I'm doing the same to the main piece and drilling a hole and inserting wire using E6000 this time. Once it fully cures, I try to wrap them around the different skewer to get the right shape, but has this happened to anyone else? I can never seem to get my epoxy to be secure. I end up having to use E6000 or another industrial glue. Anyway, I keep trying and eventually get the shape, and I just glue the parts back in place with E6000. And to keep the skewers in place, I first took some epoxy sculpt to act as a barrier so the skewer wouldn't slide up, but it broke and it looked ugly, so I used hot glue instead. And after that, I painted everything white again and glossed the tail. I want her to be pretty spooky and have some accessories. I'm taking some embroidery thread and knotting it in a way similar to macrame plant holders and making a fishing net to wrap around her waist. Not spooky enough. Let's add some cheesecloth. I want this to be her version of a seashell bra and wrap more around her waist. So I just glued 2 pieces to her pumpkins. And I just tie a piece around her waist. And then I take some scissors and rough up the pieces a little. Still needs more spooks. I'm taking some thin chain and 2 jump rings to make handcuffs to look like she was a prisoner. Oh gosh, maybe a little too spooky? Never! I'm taking some black acrylic paint and taking most of the paint off the brush to dry brush. This is to make her look old and like she hasn't kept up with herself. I do this all over, including her hair and parts of her body, which you could clearly see if I was in frame, but okay. With a few more touches, she's done. I like how she turned out. She's kind of supposed to be messy, but I think I did a good job of not making her too messy. And she certainly is spooky. Also, who's more spooky, the Ghost Mermaid or Patricia from last year? Anyway, that's it. Click here to subscribe, click here for my latest video, and click here for a video YouTube thinks you'll like. Have a happy and safe Halloween. See y'all next time. Bye.